Hey everybody, Forrest here, and today we're going to be taking a look at the claim that a NAS like this one, even when configured in RAID 5, 6, or 10, is not providing you with a true backup. And more than that, we're going to look at ways to backup a NAS like this to another device. Let's dive in. I do want to give a special thanks to UGREEN for sponsoring this video. World Backup Day is on March 31st, and they are offering 20% off their entire NAS Sync lineup, and you can learn more in the description. One quick disclaimer before we dive in is that this is not a basic video. I'm gonna be assuming that you've watched both part 1 and part 2 of my UGREEN NAS Sync setup video series, which I've left linked in the description. Let's start by defining what RAID is. RAID stands for a redundant array of independent disks, and it really offers us three things depending on the configuration. RAID can give us more speed, it can give us more reliability, and yes, it can give us data redundancy. In fact, most flavors of RAID do offer you protection from one or multiple disks failing. For example, the UGREEN NAS Sync 6800 Pro that I held up earlier in this video has 6 drive bays. It's actually my personal NAS for a lot of the storage that I use, and I have it configured in RAID 5, which means essentially one of the disks can fail and I don't lose any information. That even means I could pull a disk out while it was running and it still keeps running, it still keeps serving files. The problem is, if something were to happen to the entire device, or 2 disks were to fail, or maybe I was to delete a file that I didn't mean to delete, that's where a true backup can come in and really help out. So essentially the thing to remember is RAID will save you from a disk failure, but that's it, right? So for those of you who've maybe come from the world of using like a single main photo drive as your main image storage, a NAS is awesome because even configuring it in RAID 5, all of a sudden now you can handle a disk failure where previously with your main photo drive, you couldn't, right? Your main photo drive dies. If you hadn't backed it up, you lose everything. But we really want to take it a step further and add in an additional layer of protection with a true backup. And what that means is copying the data from the NAS onto a second device. And that second device could be another NAS, it could be an external hard drive, it could be a cloud, and we're gonna look at all of that in this video. I do wanna harken back to the 3-2-1 rule, a rule that I've covered many times on this channel. I'll leave a link up there in the corner to one of my best videos on it. But the 3-2-1 rule states that we essentially want all of our digital information in 3 separate locations. So essentially, if you have it on one NAS, then maybe a second NAS and maybe a third NAS would be a solution to that. Now, for me personally, I, with the 3-2-1 rule, count a NAS really as my 2 local copies. And then I try to have a third copy off-site. And that's because my NAS is configured in RAID 5, and if I had a single disk failure, I'm not gonna lose any information. Add that to an off-site backup of everything that's on the NAS, and I feel super safe. So what is the solution to this problem? Well, the solution is we need to try to get our entire NAS, everything that we care about, backed up somewhere else. And the way I see it, there's really 4 options for doing this. Option 1 is actually to back your entire NAS up to 1 or multiple external hard drives. Heck, I was at Best Buy the other day. They have a 20 terabyte Western Digital external hard drive for like $250, $300. Pretty amazing for how much data you can get. And for me, I have about 20 terabytes of data on my NAS, so I could buy that external hard drive, plug it into my NAS, and back the entire contents of my NAS up to that single external. I could then take that external drive, store it at a friend's house, store it in a detached garage with family, wherever I can, even in a bank, and then I know I have a good off-site backup of my NAS data. A second option would be to just buy a second NAS and back the first one up to the second one in your same network. And this is super simple. You would plug one NAS in one part of the house, plug your other NAS in another part of the house, and as long as you have a network connection between the two of them, they can automatically back up to each other either instantly or on a set schedule. And this is awesome. It means that if one NAS fails, you have the backup NAS to rely on. And we're gonna look at how to set this up in this video. A third option, depending on your internet speed, is to use some sort of cloud service, something like OneDrive or Google Drive or Amazon Glacier or Backblaze. There's lots of options out there. Now, this is a little bit slower depending on how fast your internet upload speed is, right? Your NAS has got to upload a lot of data to the cloud. But this can be a rock solid backup solution for those of you with faster internet who don't mind paying the price monthly for that cloud storage. Finally, option number 4 is to buy a second NAS and store it remotely. Have it at a friend's house, parent's house, wherever you can. And this is an awesome option. However, it is very complicated to set up securely. This is a little bit beyond the scope of this video, a true remote NAS backing up through the internet into another network. But if this is something that interests you, let me know down in the comments. So those are our 4 choices, right? That's kind of where we're at. I'm gonna focus on the first 3 in this video and show you exactly how to set them up. Let's do it. So I know I mentioned earlier that this video is sponsored by UGREEN. Huge thank you to them. This is actually my personal NAS that Sarah and I store all of our data on. This is the UGREEN NASSync DXP6800 Pro. It's awesome. I've got a bunch of drives inside of this. It's fast, it's plugged in with 10 gigabit into my network, and I can edit 4K video off of it with no problem. Super great. Just to highlight a couple more features of the 6800 Pro, it does have a 10-core Intel CPU, it supports up to 64 gigabytes of RAM, and it has 2 built-in M.2 SSD drive slots, which you can use for an SSD cache or an additional faster volume. I have 2 1 terabyte SSDs in mine. I use it for drive caching, and it makes the NAS so fast with the built-in 10 gigabit connection. I recommend UGREEN to a lot of my students, and again, they're offering 20% off to celebrate World Backup Day. You can learn more in the link down below. Let's start by covering the process of backing up your UGREEN NAS to a really big external hard drive. Now I'm gonna show you all how to do this manually in this video, but I've been told by UGREEN that they should have an automated backup to an external hard drive launching into the UGREEN operating system by the end of this year. The first step is actually going to be to plug your external hard drive into your Mac or PC and format it using the exFAT format. Now there's a little bit of competition out there for which format is the best to use for this, but it seems like exFAT is the current winner for the best compatibility with the UGREEN operating system. I will say be very careful with exFAT and unplugging the drive when there is an operation in progress. Be sure you're always ejecting or safely removing the drive before unplugging it, or you risk some data corruption. Next, we're gonna wanna get our external drive plugged into the back or front of our UGREEN NAS. All right, from here, we're gonna open up the Storage Manager app, and we're gonna go over to External Storage on the left. From here, we're gonna wanna go to Advanced Settings and be sure that USB storage device and external storage access permissions are both turned on to Use Allowed. All right, next we're gonna wanna open up File Manager to actually do the copy from one place to the other. And I wanna kind of explain what's going on here. Inside of File Manager, I can see a list of all my shared folders. And for me, all I have is one shared folder with my Lightroom Classic images all in a folder called Photos Go Here. That's what I wanna get backed up. In addition, inside of File Manager, I have this section called Peripheral. This is gonna show my externally connected devices. I can click inside of that, see that I have an external storage drive connected, and in there I can see I have a partition on that drive called NAS Backup. That's actually what I named the partition when I formatted this external drive on my computer. So all I wanna do is get my Photos Go Here folder backed up to the external storage, the external hard drive. Now there's a few ways you can do this. What I'm gonna do is just right click on Photos Go Here. I'm gonna go to Copy To, and then I'm gonna tell it to copy to the peripheral, external storage, and the NAS backup. So very simple, I'm just saying, hey, take this Photos Go Here folder and copy it over to the external hard drive. Now, when it comes to skip, overwrite, or keep, I leave that kind of up to you. I'm gonna go with skip because if a file's already been copied, there's no reason to copy it again. But if you do wanna be sure you get a full backup every time, you might wanna go with overwrite. Keep will actually keep both, so you would duplicate all of those files on the backup. We definitely don't wanna go with that option. I'm gonna go with skip and click on confirm. Now, this is gonna start the copying. I can click up here in the upper right-hand corner on the task center to see the progress. I go to files and we can watch it copying right here. We can see it's copying at over 300 megabytes per second. That's actually really fast, but this is an external SSD, not a hard disk drive. So it is gonna get a little bit more performance. There we go, it has completed. And now in File Manager, I should be able to go to my external storage, go to NAS Backup, and sure enough, there is my Photos Go Here folder backed up. So very simple process. All we're doing is using File Manager to copy those files over. Now I do wanna mention that when you do have an external USB drive connected to your NAS, the UGREEN software will actually serve that drive up as a shared folder on your network. So you actually could use something like Carbon Copy Cloner or SyncBack to do this same backup process. However, I found the UGREEN operating system system through the web interface to be much faster. From there, all you gotta do is just safely remove that drive. We can do that by right-clicking on external storage inside a file manager and clicking on eject. It's gonna say, do you sure you wanna remove? We're gonna say remove. And then as soon as this says, yes, you're good to go, there we go, operation successful. And then you can unplug that USB drive from the front or back of your NAS. Now to get the most out of this backup, I then recommend taking that drive and getting it out of your house, getting it out of your office, putting it somewhere else to make it a true off-site backup. Now, if you're concerned about your data, you might as well buy 2 of these external drives and do this same process twice and store the 2 backups at different locations. Next, I wanna look at the process of backing up one NAS to another NAS when both NASs are in the same network. So this would be, you have your main NAS in your office and you have your backup NAS maybe in a closet in another room. The first thing I recommend you do is open up a web browser and get one NAS opened up in one tab and your backup NAS opened up in the other tab. Additionally, I recommend you name them something smart. So you can see my main is called YouTube main, my backup is called YouTube backup. Those are 2 separate NASs. You can rename your NAS by going into the control panel, going into device connection, and changing the name right here where it says customize device name. I'd be very clear which one is which because we don't want to run this the wrong direction. The next step is to get the sync and backup utility installed on both the main NAS and the backup NAS. If you don't have that already, you can open up the App Center and it's one of the apps available. You just click the install button and it should install. Do note that some apps don't show up on your desktop by default, so you will need to go up here to the little My Apps section where you see the list of all your apps, and you should see Sync and Backup there, and you can right-click and create a desktop shortcut. I recommend you have a desktop shortcut on both the main and the backup. The next thing we want to do is create destination shared folders on the backup NAS that match those on the main NAS. So as an example, I'm going to go to File Manager on my main NAS, and I can see I have one shared folder called Lightroom Classic Images. I'm going to want to go to the backup NAS, go to File Manager, and I'm going to want to go to Shared Folder and create a new shared folder with a similar name that will be the destination of my backup. So again, on my main, it's called Lightroom Classic Images. On my backup, I'm going to call it Lightroom Classic Images Backup. So a shared folder that we can use as our destination. I'm going to put it on volume 1. I'm going to go ahead and enable the recycle bin. I actually might hide it on the network because I'm never going to be using this as a network destination. It's all going to be behind the scenes. And I'm going to go ahead and click create. I'm going to go ahead and give it permissions. And now we have a shared folder. I recommend you make as many destination shared folders as you have main shared folders. So a 1-to-1 ratio, every shared folder on the main has a destination shared folder on the backup. All right, from here, we're gonna go to the main NAS. I'm gonna go ahead and close File Manager. I'm gonna go to the sync and backup utility. I'm gonna go to sync, and I'm gonna create a new sync task. Now this is very simple. It's asking me what is the target? Where do I want to send my sync to? And I'm going to sync to another UGREEN NAS. Go ahead and click next. It's going to ask me the device address, which is the IP address or the domain name or the name of the other NAS. So I actually could type YouTube backup here, but instead I'm just going to go to the other NAS. I'm going to see what its IP address is, 192.168.1.50. I will say, watch my other videos because you may want to set a static IP address for these NASs so that they're not changing with the DHCP in your network, but you want to find that IP address or the name of the NAS, whatever you want to do, and type it in here. So I'm going to go 192.168.1.50. There we are. Transmission encryption, I'm going to turn off because it's a local transmission just going from one part of my network to another. But if you want to turn that on, you can. And then lastly, it's going to ask me the username and the password of our destination NAS. So I'm going to go ahead and type that in, and then I'm going to click confirm. Now what it just did was it verified that it has a connection to the other NAS, and it found that it worked. Now it may say your password's incorrect, in which case your password's incorrect. Also make sure your backup NAS is on, right? It needs to test that. But this worked. It found the other NAS, it communicated with it, and now we need to actually set up the sync. So it's very simple. The remote path is where we want our data to go. So I'm going to select the Lightroom Classic Images Backup folder. Then what's the local path? What is it that we want to back up? And I'm going to back up the Lightroom Classic Images folder. Confirm. So we're basically saying, hey, the Lightroom Classic Images on my local NAS, I want to back up to the Lightroom Classic Images backup on my backup NAS. For sync direction, I'm going to make this very easy. I'm going to go only changes to the local data, so stuff I do on the main drive, will be synchronized to the remote drive. And then you can choose deleting local files won't affect the remote files. This is an important one. If you turn this off, then anything you do on the main, including deleting stuff, will happen on the backup. Meaning if you delete 10 files on the main, those 10 files will be deleted on the backup. I'm gonna leave this up to you. I know some people that they wanna have their backup be protection in case they accidentally delete a bunch of files. And in that case, you would wanna leave this on, where if you delete something off the main, it stays on the backup. I know a lot of other people, they know when they delete something, they want that data to be gone forever, so they want it off the backup as well. If you leave this on, your backup NAS will fill up quicker than your main NAS, so do keep that in mind. In this case, I'm gonna leave this on because I want this backup to be a true backup, meaning if I make a mistake and delete a bunch of files on the main, I wanna be able to go back and get them off the backup drive. All right, and from here, I'm gonna go ahead and click next, and it's gonna ask me when I wanna do this. I can do real time, which means it'll run constantly. If I make a change, it'll push the change to the backup NAS. I'm gonna go ahead and go sync as planned, where I can schedule it, and I'm just gonna have it run weekly every Sunday at, let's say, midnight, and we're gonna start it this Sunday. So there we go, and I'm gonna click save. So that's gonna schedule it to run Sunday at midnight. It'll run every single week and should keep going forever. Now, obviously check it, come into the sync and back up and make sure it's working, but that should run. Do note that if you do wanna run it real time, it is gonna slow down your network a little bit, right? Your NAS is gonna be working all the time and you might get a little bit of network congestion. So I do recommend scheduling this to run every single night or weekly, whatever you're comfortable with. From here, I'm gonna go ahead and click on next. And I'm gonna give it a name. I'm gonna call this Lightroom Photo Backup. And I'm gonna click on confirm. You will note there's a sync immediately after creation. I recommend we turn that on. That'll actually run the sync as soon as we create it. And then from then on, it'll follow the schedule. All right, and here we are. It is running the backup. You can see it's copying all of my data from my main NAS to my backup NAS. Just to check, I can go to the backup NAS. In the file manager, open this shared folder. You can see there's already data in there, right? We just created this and we're already getting information on the backup NAS. There are the photos copying over. So it should run fairly quick. Again, if you have 10 gigabit, it's gonna run at faster speeds if you have 10 gigabit from your main all the way to your backup. But again, like we talked about in the first video, if you go down to gigabit even for one leg of that connection, it's gonna run at gigabit speeds. So if you do want that 10 gig performance, you're gonna need to make sure you have 10 gig from the main all the way through to the backup, through every switch, through every cable, through every interface. You need it the whole way. Next, I want to look at how we can back up from our UGREEN NAS to the cloud. Now, at time of recording, the only cloud service that's supported by the UGREEN operating system is OneDrive. However, I've been told that Google Drive will be coming very soon. In order to make this happen, we're going to want to start by installing an app called NetDisk Tools from the App Center to our main NAS. Once this is installed, we're going to go ahead and open it up. And we're gonna create a new connection between NetDisk and our UGREEN NAS. So I'm gonna click this create button. It's gonna ask me which NetDisk I wanna connect to. I'm gonna select OneDrive. Again, Google Drive is coming soon. And we're gonna click on next. This is gonna ask us to sign into our Microsoft account, which you're gonna wanna step through that process. And then once you're signed in, it's gonna ask for permission. And once we give it permission, it's gonna have the ability to connect directly with our OneDrive. We can see there, authorization was successful, and now we can set up the backup. Once we've made the connection with OneDrive, we're gonna wanna go over to the left where we can see the OneDrive connection, come over here and click Create Sync Task. Now here again, just like backing up one NAS to another NAS, I recommend you create a folder on your OneDrive to use as the destination for your backup. If you haven't done that, by the time you get to this step, you can actually just click here where it says NetDisk Path. That will load what's on your OneDrive, and there is a new folder button. So if I wanna go to, say, Pictures, and then click on New Folder, I can call this Lightroom NAS Backup, and click on Confirm. This is gonna create a new folder on my OneDrive. I can confirm right there. And then it's gonna ask me what my local path is. I'm gonna click on the NAS, select my Lightroom Classic Images shared folder, click on confirm, and then it's gonna ask me the sync direction. Now again, this is just like the NAS to NAS backup we talked about earlier. We really wanna sync only data changes from the NAS to the net disk. So this third option here, sync only the data changes from the NAS to the net disk. That means anything that changes on the NAS will be pushed up to the cloud and not the other way around. Again, we have that same option, deleting the files on the NAS won't affect files on cloud storage. I leave that up to you. I'm gonna leave it on because if I'm gonna do a cloud backup, I want it to be a true backup. If I delete something off the NAS, I might have done that accidentally. I wanna keep that file on the cloud. From here, I'm gonna go ahead and click on next. It's gonna ask me how I wanna do it. I'm gonna go with scheduled again, make a new plan, and we're gonna run it, let's say every day at midnight, and it starts tonight. There we go. Click on save. And then I'm gonna click on next, and we're gonna give it a name. So let's call it Lightroom Classic Images. And again, we have that sync immediately after creation. If we don't check that and I click confirm, it will just run on the schedule. So at this case, it'll start tonight at midnight. Now I will say this backup obviously would not work for me because you guys can see my capacity of my OneDrive is 3.7 gigs of 5 gigs. I don't have enough space to do that, but I know a lot of people who pay for a lot of OneDrive storage. So this would be a great option. And again, Google Drive is coming soon. All right, everybody, that sums up this video. Again, there is a link in the description to the entire UGREEN NAS Sync lineup, which are all 20% off to celebrate World Backup Day. On that note, World Backup Day is March 31st. Back up your stuff. I hate it when I get stories of people losing data. We want to do everything we can to prevent that. If you have any questions, leave them in the comment section down below. Hit subscribe and like if you liked this video, and I hope to see you in a future one. Thanks, everybody, and I'll see you later.